My name is Rosalyne Shieh and I'm an architect, but I'm also an educator. I'm actually born in the United States. My parents are Taiwanese. They came here for graduate school in the 60s. We maintain a very close relationship with family and maintaining kind of an understanding of what's happening in Taiwan. But the thing about like the Taiwanese community overseas, not in Taiwan, right? It's like everybody's like family. So if I ever have anything, I just call my dad. And I have aunts and uncles everywhere, right? It's really like, they're not my real aunts and uncles, but they're my Taiwanese aunts and uncles, and they're always ready to help, you know? They're like the most giving people. And I think it's because they were a small export group from Taiwan at a time when they had to band together to help each other, also because they suddenly realized that they couldn't go home. You know, it's like you see each other and you're like, okay, I know you're out in the world. People don't understand this. They're like, you weren't even born there, you know? Like, but when I meet another Taiwanese person, there's like a whole history that comes with it. I think it's something that actually a lot of people have a hard time understanding, I guess, that this kind of like dual in identity. So when you don't know what your identity is, you have to work harder to constitute it. Which in some cases it's not different from being American.
Right.
And then being Taiwanese American, everyone's like, well, I don't really understand what you are. Because you look one way, but you talk like an American. But you have this connection to this place I've never heard of. You know, I mean, people have heard of it, but they are confused about it because it's small. The most beautiful thing about Taiwan, one of the most beautiful things, and I'll characterize it in a general sense, but you can see it in many places, is the total kind of juxtaposition or coexistence of the very high and the very low, right? Super high technology, super high kind of intelligence, but like, like a very, what is that term? Asari.
Asari.
You know, like a very like, just like a really direct kind of unpretentious attitude on one level, but also just like really casual, let's say really casual fashion. You know, like, I mean, that's a kind of more mundane or prosaic way of putting it, but if you go to a wedding, people will come and like totally they're like not dressed up. But it's great, you know, like people are really, they don't judge people based on like appearances so much. And some people are really rough, not rough in like a kind of, there's not an assumption that if you're rough, you're not intelligent, right? And so the kind of focus on, or the kind of reliance on the kind of refined quality of the body and the clothing and the kind of gestures as a way of verifying intelligence and importance is just kind of less there, you know, and I think that's really refreshing. So I am a part of a partnership, Sham Shieh, with Troy Sham. We have been working together in collaboration for about 5 years, and we work between Houston, Texas, and New York, New York. I never want to work from an idea towards a thing, right? To me, that's antithetical to the kind of sheer creativity of making the work of architecture, right? And so what I can talk about is the way in which we do it, and then I can talk about it after it's been made. But there's a kind of no man's land in the middle there where we lose the link, right? That we owe of course we owe a lot to the things that have developed in architecture in the last 10 years, right? Landscape urbanism. I wouldn't call myself a landscape urbanist by any means. But there has been a lot of interesting conversation that was very necessary. It was a polemic at that moment to think about things as a process of change, and also think about things in terms of their performance or that are operative but not necessarily fully visible as objects, and also the kind of diagramming project of the late 90s, right? where you are able to use notation and diagramming as a way to move projectively towards something, where you're not always working on the form, but perhaps the things that define the form, right? So the kind of displacement from the thing to the things that inform the thing. And so Sponge Urbanism was a means for us to look at what you might call the kind of thinning of the urban fabric in Detroit, right? But forcing ourselves to see it as a condition that was transforming rather than something that was decaying. And that I would say in a nutshell is the kind of idea behind that project. And then if we change that attitude and draw in a way that has that attitude, where we can look at transition rather than decay, understand something and try to see with an open mind at what's emerging rather than focusing on what's disappearing, we might actually invent in different ways. This is a criticism that we got so much for Detroit,
right.
Which is like, you're not taking into account all of the social problems, and like, this isn't really about Detroit. You know what, I don't make work about Detroit, I make work for Detroit. There's a huge difference.
Right.
As architects, we don't make work about architecture. Okay, sometimes about architecture. All architecture is about architecture to some degree, but if your aim is to make work about architecture, if your architecture is about architecture, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. And so what we did was we try to draw everything that wasn't there, that wasn't visible. Right? And so for us, those drawings are a means of drawing the things that are there that we don't necessarily, drawing everything else, everything other than what we normally see.
Yeah.
It's a kind of revival of teaching descriptive geometry to students, is that it comes out of an interest in, you're talking about light rays, and you basically show all the things around the thing that describe the thing, but actually where the thing is an empty space, right? You don't actually draw the thing. You can't draw the thing. Only the thing is the thing.
Right.
But you can describe it, but your description is a kind of like something that happens around something. It never can actually ever quite touch the thing, right? And that becomes extremely apparent when you're doing exercises like real projection, not like perspectives not pictorial perspectives, but real kind of like grappling with an object in space.